Everyone, thanks for joining. This is part 2 of our session. I'm delighted to have you all here today. The session will be recorded, so it will be available to you in greater depth. Today is going to be a slightly different format than the one prior, where we kind of went through the slideshow in a kind of presentation format. So please ask questions in today's session with Elliot's help. We're going to basically go through it in a live format. So questions that you have, feedback that you have, please share it, because that will improve the session for everyone. We've scheduled it for an hour. It may finish a little bit earlier. So your questions, your feedback is going to be very important today to help build the session. But with that, I'll shut up. And Elliot, thanks for joining us today. And I'm excited to get kind of like hands into it, like actually showing people how they can use it. So nice to chat with you again, and I'm grateful for you helping us out with this and sharing with everyone today how they can actually go ahead and use it. But
yeah, thank you so much, Scott. Really appreciate you having me back. I know last time that we talked, you went for more of the broad strokes of what is Copilot, where we're at in this AI moment, and how to get prepared for it. But now let's have the rubber meet the road on what we're going to see inside of this tool. But again, before we do that, just want to remind everyone what we're looking at today, and there's a couple different portions of different flavors we'll talk about Copilot. The first one, confusingly, is named Copilot as well. I like to anachronistically think of this as Copilot for the web. This is something that you most likely as an organization, if you're consuming Microsoft today, have access to, but it does some really great things when searching through the web. It's going to feel very similar to those who work with GTP in the past, but just know we're going to be showing a couple quick things on that first, and then moving to the main show, which is Copilot for M365. That's where we're going to go into all of these different applications that we're going to see. We're going to go in and work on Word. We're going to go inside Outlook. We're going to create some PowerPoints when it comes to this, using some of the tools with Copilot, and then finish up Excel. We do have a quick Teams video. It's not going to be completely a live session for that one. We'll see if anyone's interested on that one. We can play that for a little bit. It's just difficult in the format we have doing a team meeting to show this, but we'll definitely touch on some of the key features there. So if there's no questions when we're starting off here, I'm ready to jump into live. You are, Scott.
Yeah, and just a quick reminder, we have the Q&A session there just posted in there. Please post questions, whatever you have, into the Q&A, and we'll take them as we go. And without no further ado.
Perfect. Well, as we get started here, you should be seeing, this Outlook screen. As this is where most of us probably start our days when we're getting ready to either type some emails or respond to emails on this side. But the great thing here is when we have Copilot, there's a couple different ways you can go through and access this. One, I can hit on this icon in the top right to start drafting with Copilot, or if I just type a / into Copilot, that's going to open up where I'm going to see with my editor here. I can start drafting with Copilot. And as I want to go through my drafts, I can decide, what do I want to say on this email? So if I want to go through and ask, please create an email to Scott, letting him know, about the meeting on Tuesday, and confirming. So then from there, all I have to do is hit generate, and that's where I'm going to start creating a draft when it comes to Copilot. Now, if I say, hey, I want this looks great for me on what I've generated, I can give feedback here to Copilot. But if there's anything I want to change, this is how I can start going through and editing what this prompt is going to look like. So if I say, hey, this is too short, I want something a little bit longer, I can go ahead through and do this. If I say this is too long, I can make this shorter by this prompt here, Copilot, more formal, more direct, more casual. If I work on an English department, maybe I could even make it a poem or something of that nature. I don't know who's used this one too much, but there's a lot of different ways that this can go through and be changed by this one. But let's say, hey, a little too simple for me, I want to make this longer. It's going to go through and create a different draft on this side. And from there, I can either have this, again, I say, it's okay, but I want to make this more formal. I can go back and reconfigure those ones again. As you can see, each time we've gone through there, we've made those responses different inside of our Outlook. And if we say, actually, I didn't really like 3, I want to go back to 2, all I have to do is click here, and I can go back to that draft version where I said, let's make this longer on this email. Let's make this different changes here. So all of these will be inside of there until I decide that I want to keep this, or I can just retry again on any of these different regenerations. A lot of times when you're setting up with these different emails, if you have this connected to different CRM systems or things of that nature, you can pull in some of those data on that side. But for this, just simply going through Outlook, this is the ways that you can make these changes. And just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and keep this email. But again, if I want to change anything on this side, I can still go back to my draft, right? I can generate again from this one, see if we can change anything. But let's just see what happens if I decide to make this into a poem on this side. Again, makes me have a nice little haiku there for you to go through and try. But again, just really easy ways if you're looking to make quick responses to emails that Copilot can help you with those drafts. But actually, what I find probably most beneficial in here is not really where Copilot's creating the email from this, but actually something that's called coaching by Copilot. So if I add in a coaching by Copilot, this is actually analyzing email that I've already created in here. And then it can give me suggestions on how can I make this friendlier or more engaging on this side? How can I change any of my different content on this one to, instead of using hope everything is going well today, consider this, I hope you're having a great day, or something of that nature on this side. As we scroll down, we can see all the different suggestions that it's making inside of this side, and just really tell me, what could make this a more friendly, a better tone, better different things on this email that I've created for Scott on this today. For me, I think this is the tool that's helped me clear up my business emails, especially those who maybe are newer inside your organization, to understand how do I want my business to be presented to the world when we're making these Outlook emails to go out and see those ones. So, and again, what I would say the best practice on this one is you see that AI generated content is good and you like this, to continue to give this feedback on these ones, on saying, hey, this is helpful or this isn't helpful. I've had Copilot now for coming up on a year as one of the early users. And, as if you've been on the first presentation, you've heard me say this before, the more you work with this tool, the more you give feedback, the more it's going to understand you. How do I interact with email? How do I want to be presented when I'm going through and doing this different thing on my side? And again, feedback is very important on this one. But we can go one more time and see if we can regenerate on what it says, on what their suggestions were on this one more time. Again, I think it's going to come in very, very similar on the coaching when it comes to tone and sentiment on this one. But again, you can change some of your coaching values on this one to say, hey, in our organization, this is more important to us, or, XYZ is more important to us on this side when you're having those coaching. So a couple different ways to go through and, look at what happens when it comes to Outlook. And like I said, making sure that when you're presenting this to the world, that it's coming through the tone and format that you're looking for.
Yeah, hate to cut you off there, Elliot, real quick. Great question from Joe, and please keep them coming, because that's going to make, and like I said earlier, for the third time, it's going to make it for a better session. So Joe had a question. So Elliot, what we're going through here, this is for the paid version of Copilot, right? The earlier slide spoke about the free and the paid. This one, to Joe's question, is this with the paid one? It is the paid one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So think of anything that's touching the actual application itself is going to be your paid version of Copilot. So we can transition over to the next side, and we're going to go over here and we can look a little bit more on what it's going to feel like when you're looking for the non-paid version of Copilot as well. But for anything that touch applications, my Outlook, my Teams, my PowerPoint, all those different applications, that's going to be the paid version. But we can transition over and show you a little bit what it's going to look like for the non-paid version as well.
Okay, cool. Hopefully, Joe, that answered your question. I'll respond to you in the chat, and please, if you have more, go ahead and post them. I've used similar functionality for myself, and I'll be honest, I've written an email. I look at it sometimes, my grammar's not always the best, and I get a version back. I'm like, oh, that's actually better than what I wrote. But appreciate the question, Joe. Thanks, Elliot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a really great question. Yeah, good to make the delineation there. And, when you're going to come inside of your Microsoft browser, up in the top right, this is what you're going to see, if you have access to this capability. And that is going to be, Copilot button on the top right. And how you're in the Copilot free version, and why I anachronistically, again, call it the web version, is because you're going to see this web button here. When you have both the free and paid version, you're going to have this ability to toggle back and forth between the two of them. Just know when I'm going web, that is outside of my organization, that data is going. Still has data protections on it, but I want to make sure that I'm not sharing anything that I don't want to leave my organization when I'm working with this free web version on this side. But there's a lot of different things you can do on this side. I think let's just start with something. It's snowy here in Denver today. We just got I don't know, 6 or 7 inches of snow. So, if I want to message Copilot something silly on this one, say, hey, can you find the best recipe for chicken noodle soup today? It'll go through and start generating these different contents and give me kind of a different options, when it comes to, making chicken noodle soup, as silly as that might be. But why I like, kind of doing some of these silly prompts or different things on this side, it's a low stakes environment to understand how to better prompt with this tool. Again, as I probably will keep saying, and maybe I'm a broken record on this, utilizing and working with the tool is how you're going to get the best results on this side. But another thing that I really like on this web version is it's not just, hey, here's the best chicken noodle soup recipe. Each one of these is going to have a hyperlink to both the recipe, or if you're looking for content that's going to be more needing to be verified, what is the source material from this data, right? I can easily access that on any of the different ones, and then if I want to learn more or make sure that everything here is correct, I can look through all these different hyperlinks to say, hey, is the Food Network correct, or whatever it might be, and use my sources based on what those hyperlinks are on that one. And if I want to say, hey, I don't actually want chicken noodle soup, but I want that feel, I'm a vegetarian, like I said, I can add on different prompts on that side for it to regenerate on anything else that I want to do on this side.
Can I throw one in there, Elliot, real quick? So
yeah, what's up?
One uses I've used for this that you're saying here is if you're wanting to pull some industry stats or numbers or something specific to your line of business, and you want to be able to pull some information and stats and things like that, numbers to share, this is a great resource for that too, because as Elliot alluded to, there's chicken noodle soup. Now I want chicken noodle soup, but anyway, but it pulls a lot of the stats. So if you're in a manufacturing industry, or if you're in marketing and you want to pull some stats and numbers, I've used it that way. It's a very great tool for just quickly pulling data that would typically take a long time for you to extract manually. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and I'll grab that one here if you don't want to. But let's transition. I was gonna go through and find some honeymoon hotels too, but let's go back to business and let's just say, hey, I work with Copilot every day. What's the difference for Copilot for M365 and Copilot Pro, right? Something that might be a question you want to go through and answer to, but here it's going to give me a full list of what's Copilot, what's my target audience, what's the integration look like, and a brief setup on the features, and then as you'll look for like a technical setup, a portion of this one, but it's an easy way to really get a quick comparison from the internet on two separate products like this. Like I said, it's not coming through on these stats like you're talking to. We definitely can go through and look at one of those on that one as well. This is again just different ways that you can get those key differences, those key integration, key features of something that might be a technical aspect. Obviously, always check on your sources on this one to make sure they're correct, and always continue to give that feedback on making sure this is what you're looking for when it comes to that free web version. Scott, is there anything specific on the industry that you'd like me to ask Copilot on this side for any kind of data on that side?
I mean, I talk about ransomware, like you could pull up that one, but on the cybersecurity, that's the one that I've used it for, so to pull some industry numbers in terms of things like ransomware for cybersecurity. But if you're here today and you're in the legal vertical, or if you're here today in the marketing vertical, or many of you on the call today are from different industries, you may want to pull some industry stats that are relevant to you. And for me, I'm always looking at cybersecurity stats, the growth in ransomware, the growth in AI, seeing as we're on this webinar as well. And it's so I think it's going to be very specific to the individual and what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, no problem. Well, you said something about ransomware on this side.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at what's the total impact of ransomware dollar-wise in the United States.
Yeah.
And I do say I am breaking one rule on Copilot. it's really on this side you say please and thank you. So, maybe it's being a little more trite with me
Yes.
since I have. But like you
Yeah.
said, easily can pull up, what the total impact of this one is, 159 billion, creeping up on 160 billion. I think that's making us the leader. So go USA on that one, on leading the ransomware side. But like you said, it can pull these different ones. Like you said, too, gives you the information on where it's pulling this from to make sure that where this is, it is good.
Yeah, and then I think the prompting is important too. So if I tell me on the last 3 years, a lot of times, the increase in the last 3 years. So I think, and you touched on it, Elliot, in the first session, prompting's key in many ways to your success. Like, be very pointed, in kind of what you're trying to do, because the more pointed you are, the more direct the information is you're going to get back to help you in what you're putting together. So
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, if we want to go deeper on that ransomware, all I had to do was have that prompt and say, hey, what's the change been, right? And we can see that's gone 47% over the last years on this side. So definitely an easy way to search for information, like you said, and find those statistics instead of Googling through different things and trying to put those together, for sure. Any other questions on the website? Otherwise, we're going to slip over here to the work one and show a little bit of what's been utilized on that before.
Yeah, I don't see any in the chat, so I think we can keep moving.
Yeah, so like I said, this tool is not just for outside the web. This is work. The big change here is I've gone from where I'm going through outside of the web and pulling sources from, everywhere that custody could be on the internet, to actually inside of my tenant. So this is going to be pulling information from my SharePoint, from my Outlook, from Word files that I have access to, whatever it might be. And this is where it starts to become really important to understand your security, right? Making sure that whoever individual has this license either has the appropriate or not too much, access to data. Because Copilot, as smart as it is, if it has access to it, it's going to utilize it for, pulling through that data. But, one thing I like to use it for, if I'm coming up in a meeting and I said, hey, I had this meeting with Scott, what are the last 5 emails I've had from Scott? So Scott, hopefully you didn't say anything too bad for me on these last emails.
We're about to find out. This is live, yeah.
So when it goes through, it's going to comb through my emails, right? And this is live, right? This is the last emails that I have from Scott, and it comes through on different things on what happened on this series. But what I really like here is what are the main points that have come through from these emails. So instead of me actually go back and read all 5 of these emails, I can go through and see, hey, here's the things you want to do. Appreciation for the webinar. Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate you. Or just kind of different things. Here's the top 5 things that have happened on going through, and we want to review presentations or whatever it might be that we have coming up. Really just helps you prepare for this meeting on different sides on that one. So again, just one thing that I find very useful on using this search function for work that's a little bit different than the website, but know that everyone's going to find something a little bit different on this side, right? There's ways that you can use this for image generations or different things on that front from that. It does take a little bit longer, obviously, to do generation than it has when you're doing the large language model. But the one thing, too, I want to iterate is, as we go through and re-show these different things that we're working on today, know is we're really just scratching the surface, right? I think when you work with this inside your organization and you find, your group of champions that are going to work with this tool, that's really what's going to show on what's most important for me. It might be that it's Excel, it might be that this is the most important, but there's a lot of different things that can happen inside of this tool. But I want to transition to go over to one more of the apps, and we're going to start on Word on this one and start working our way through. So I'm going to close out my search portion on this chat, and we're going to go right into the Word side of this. So as you can see on this one, there's different ways to go through and engage with Copilot. Right here at the very top, it has some things to start insights on, or again, I can trigger Copilot in the top right to go through and start a plan for me. But let's say, I wanted to create a plan, for me, one time I see on these industries is, HR, right? So let's go through and see if they can create a family plan when it comes to this. And I'm going to go ahead and take advice from Copilot and start generating this. But this is just from that small prompt. So again, I don't think you need to base your HR team completely off of Copilot. But for me, this creates a great framework for what's going on this side. It knows that here in Colorado that we have a 12-week leave program that's part of our Colorado laws, and was able to pull that in from this. So, obviously, I'm sure all your legal teams are saying, please make sure you verify this information, which I absolutely agree with on each one of these. But this is an easy way to start prompting on something as simple as this. And same thing for everything else on this side. I can regenerate, I can keep it, I can discard it, or I can, say, hey, I dislike or like what you've created for this one. Different places I've seen on this one is anywhere from requests for proposals that have been created on templates from this, making sure that, different things are set up in the office according to this. It's just a great way to get started and create a document in literally like 20 seconds on this side. But let's say, hey, I actually don't want to have my HR do this one. I'm going to discard this. I want to do something else with this side. I'm going to go back in and select on this and say, hey, I created something from scratch just from Word, but let's say I have a file that I actually want to create something from. So I'm going to use this guide on this side on something I work with quite a bit on Microsoft incentives and rebates. So let's see what it can produce insights for me when I link this file together. And obviously, depending on the materials, again, that you're showing there, depends on what I have access to inside of my tenant. So again, make sure those are in place. But again, this can really go through quickly and break down the best information from this and show me, what's pertinent to myself, what do I need to do, what I need to do in a summary. Something I use this a lot on, and I notice that Teams is a little bit difficult to come through. A lot of times when I have those Teams transcripts that come from those recordings, I can use this to summarize that quite quickly on what happened with inside those meetings. And then if I need to send over an executive summary to someone on what happened in this meeting, give me a rundown what's going on, I'm able to go through and do so by this one. But as you can see, again, it pulled out, all of what it thinks is the most pertinent information from this, which, working in this industry quite a bit, I would tend to agree that it's correct on what it's showing on the incentives, on the different accelerators. But now this is an easy thing that I can send over to an organization instead of pulling through a 30 or 40 page file that was on, what is actually important on this side. But if I want to edit this prompt and have it do something else, I absolutely can regenerate it, whatever I might be able to do. This is ways to go through and do this. Scott, is there anything you want me to try to create with this, or anything we're seeing in the chat that you want me to work from?
I'd be curious to see a sample like sales proposal. That'll be fascinating. But as you do that, I just wanted to touch on something. So Elliot mentioned about transcription. So if you're using Teams today, you can record and it will transcribe the meeting. And you touched on a good point, Elliot. When you hit transcribe, what it will do, obviously the meeting's recorded for you, but you'll get a transcription of the meeting, or basically the meeting is transcribed for you. What Elliot was referring to is taking that transcription of your meeting and basically giving you a summary of that, which I'd say is highly valuable, because a lot of times you get the transcription and it's there's a lot, there's a lot to go through. So that's a nice way of recording a meeting. You may have a weekly meeting in your company or a bi-weekly meeting in your company. You can record it and then get a summary of all the different points that were brought up, so that you have a copy of those. And that was a great example for that. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Absolutely. And, I think one thing to point out too is we're looking at what I'm creating the sales proposal. We can see on this, highlighted, kind of grayed out portion too, Copilot itself is actually making suggestions for me as I go through on what I can add to my prompt to make this better, right? And again, this is it knowing me. It's had me, maybe not the right word, had me, but I've been working with it for over a year. So it understands, hey, this might be something that's beneficial to add this prompt to get the best out of this. So like I said, I'm creating sales pros, and we're doing eco-friendly packaging on this one just as a sample. But obviously you can put in, whatever your industry is, or, since you're using your data, you could reference a previous sale proposal you used to create a new one with this. But let's come through what they're going to, put together for a sales proposal on this one. So again, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I was going to say this is great, because a lot of times for us in business, time is that commodity that we're all struggling to manage often, and this is something typically it would take your time or someone else's time that either you're paying or your own time to do it. So I mean, that was created quickly.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, and obviously this is bringing trust and credibility on these ones. And these ones are obviously not real, right? On this one, these are just examples on this side. But again, as you go through this and you have different reference documents or different things on this can create all those pieces of testimonials, of design portions, of all the different options the customer has to go over and be part of that proposal. And then as you see a little bit further, we can work on Excel. That could be the final piece of this, get tied all together to be able to give you a real proposal that can go out to partners and your customers. Like I said, I was working with I did a presentation like this in Pittsburgh, and one of the customers there had requests for proposals that they did for their legal customers, and they were able to quickly and effectively kind of copy and paste a little bit on their boilerplate legal documents on common practices on common contracts on that one. It's always, in my opinion, and I think this is a conversation you need to have with your organization too, internally, is to when to talk to customers about when there's AI generated content as part of what they're signing. That law office took the stance that, hey, we're going to tell them that this is help generated by AI. I tend to agree with them, but just know inside of your organization, that's a question you need to ask yourselves individually. And that's why it's great to have that AI council, have different champions working with this, so you understand, how do we want to approach this? How do we want to be transparent when it comes to AI? Awesome. Yeah, nothing on this one. I'm going to go over to one of our next portion, which is, our PowerPoint.
I just hold for a second. I'm sorry, there's a question, which is good. I love it, by the way. Keep the questions coming. Scott had a question, not me, another Scott, but how do you reference multiple documents for Copilot to draw from? So
let me go back and let me generate this one, right? So if I come in here, I can come from this one and create this file, but I also can add additional content at the same time for this one. So I can have both of those summaries. Obviously, if I want to go through here, I need to tell Copilot what's the one that I want to focus on for this information, right? I want to make sure to say, hey, if we're doing this, these are my product specifications to go into this page on this side, or, I want to make sure this is added to, this portion on this one. That's how you would go through and add those. But there's easy ways to do, you can reference multiple documents at the same time, but you do need to go through and let Copilot know on kind of the presentation manner of those and what's to pull through on those sections. So it's just that simple to reference multiple documents on that side, and be able to pull insights from those files on that one. So not a tough enough process on those ones. It just needs to make sure that you go through and do that. I'll just go ahead and close this for a second so we can get restarted on that one. Does that answer the question for Scott?
I hope so. We'll find out. If not, did for me.
If not, Scott, let us know on that one, and we can come back and do that one. But as I said too, once you also, if we last thing I probably can, and then I can move on to the PowerPoint. If you go through and create your document, and you have, you can always go back, save that as a template, use that as your reference doc, and then add those additional files to that. I would just say play around with this for yourselves. Feel what works best for you, and then you'll have an understanding on, okay, if I put this file this way, this is going to look like, or if I do it this way, this is going to be the way to do it. And the reason I like having you try is that you're going to know what's best for your organization. So it's not going to be a one size fit all on how the best way to go about that. But yeah, you absolutely can add additional files there on this and be able to go through and reference them in any kind of documentation you're creating.
Great question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let us know if there's any questions we go through. Like I said, we're happy to address them as we break on this. But again, very, very similar to what we're feeling when it comes to, our more word side of this. It's, how do we want to create a presentation from a file? Do we want to just create a presentation from words? Are there any things that we have gotten from our presentation already and we can understand? Where that's going to come into play is if I already have a fully fledged presentation, maybe it's been sent over to me to do some kind of proof or checking on this side. That's where the understand really comes in on those. It's, hey, what is the key points? I was part of the presentation, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly on what's the ask is for this side. So that's where the understand portions are going to come in. But let's go through and create a presentation just from some text, right? Let me try that one more time here.
So just as you do that, another question, which I love it. It's going well. Not related to presentation stuff. Is the paid version per organization or per user?
It is per user on this side. And what I would say on that one again is the biggest thing is um, the really big thing on that one is, find within inside your organization who works best with those documents. And it is not a tenant-wide license. It is for each individual on those. What I've seen a lot of organizations do as they're testing this is you can always reassign licenses, right? It is an annual commitment, but some people have been going through and each quarter shifting some of those licenses around onto who's using it. But that's also had the same case is a lot of people, once they have it, they don't want to give it up. So, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you do on some of those. But it is per user. And that's why I think it's great to start small, because I want to make sure the commitment you're going through and doing isn't something that's going to be onerous on cost. And you make sure it is valuable enough for your time. We want to make sure that for that $1 a day you're spending on this license, that it's giving you value that obviously exceeds that by a lot, because it's not just the cost, it's you interacting with the tool, understanding how it works. So a lot of the different things do matter on that side.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. So sure, you're right, Elliot. When we've seen people implement it, they start with a couple of product champions, if you will, or people that are going to dig into it initially and then expand beyond there. But yeah, that's absolutely kind of supporting what you said. Just start with a few people, and I think it's interesting, as you mentioned, that once you've got it, you don't tend to want to give it up. I think that makes a ton of sense too. So hopefully that answered your question. And yeah.
I think the biggest one on that one, and I'm going to out myself as a big Microsoft nerd, which I don't think is surprising by any stretch of imagination. I was listening to Microsoft's Work Lab not too long ago when it was first coming out, and they were actually talking about Dentsu Creative, which is a huge marketing organization, offices in Tokyo, New York, all across the world, and they actually were one of the first that had 300 licenses for their organization, which for Dentsu is pretty small. It's only about 5% of their total workforce. But by the time they got through that initial trial period, which is 3 months, they had 3,000 requests from employees who had seen their colleagues using this and wanting to. So that's a huge endorsement by a very large organization. I don't think that fits everyone, but I think you're going to understand inside your industry and then inside your organization. Past that, is it 10? Is it 25? Is it 50? In my marketing organization, it's going to be 100. What percentage of employees is actually going to be beneficial for, and get the return on investment that you're looking for? So that's again why we keep talking about AI councils and champion users inside. It really matters to be educated on this side, and like I said, addresses bigger issues just on usage, but also transparency to customers and different thing on that side. Anything you want to add on that one, Scott, or is that
yeah? Another question today. Really good questions. So this one's an interesting one. So can Copilot be integrated into an ERP system to pull sales, HR, financial data into Excel or Power BI for business analysis using autonomous agents? If so, could you walk through how that would be accomplished or set up?
It is available. Actually, I can have some integration into my Salesforce. I'm sorry that I can't show you on this one because I have my own data organization rules on that side.
Okay.
But it absolutely can. Mine is integrated with Salesforce. The most smooth integration, as you can imagine, is going to be with Dynamics CRM on that side. Go figure, right? But that's an easy way that it could pull through data on that side. But you might see it pop up on my Excel sheet when I come through, where you'll see a Salesforce option. So it is there. If you get the license or you want some more individual attention on how you can do that, we absolutely can help you. I'm just making sure I stay within the bounds of my data privacy on this side to not show you that for Salesforce. So sorry I can't do that, but it absolutely can, right? And I will tell you the list of integrations is about a mile long on who's trying to get in as part of this one. The same thing is, and really how it works, right, is it's just a read-only access to Salesforce. So if I need to grab something and pull back in, that's how I can do that. It is just making sure that connector is set up, and there is a laundry list of those third-party connectors. But if it doesn't integrate right now, it will eventually on this side. As you can imagine, Microsoft AI tool is probably one of the most utilized out there because it does work with applications every single day. So again, I can't show you just because of my own things, but it does. Right. It absolutely does, and there's different ways to do that. So if you get set up and you start utilizing the tool, get with Scott, get with myself, and we can show you how to go through and do that for yourself internally.
Awesome. Could save you a ton of time too. So great question, and the answer is yes. Yes, you can.
Yep, absolutely. No, really good questions on that one. And I'll have to make a different demo environment on this one so I can show people that day too. So I'm gonna make a mental note for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go back to presentation. I have something just kind of silly in here. Maybe I will go on through one that's going to look more on the business side of things on what we're going through here from a file. But I'm just going to create this. I'm going to say, hey, I want to convince my wife that we should take the kids on a fun Disney vacation this year. Can you create me a PowerPoint slide from this one? It's going to be a little bit slower on this side when you're looking things over, right? Because it's also going to be going through and generating images and different things. Probably isn't going to take anything from Disney. We're going to get some fun stock images on this side, but this is how it goes through and does this. On my side, someone who does a lot of presentations, I find this really, again, as that great starting point, and then I can get the base of what I'm looking for in the data, and then polish everything up on this side. And it is able to go through, and we'll do one where we reference a file here on this one. And like I said, if I want to use Designer, I can change how this goes. But again, we can go through and give a little bit things on why I think that we should go through and go to Disney to this year. And as you can see, it created a 15-page presentation on this in the time we were talking today. So very easy to go through and create this presentation on this one. Again, just kind of a silly one to get us started, but there's also ways that we can create presentations from files, which I think is a really great way. If you've done that executive summary, if you've created something in Word already, how can I go through and create this from a file? So I'm going to go through and just recreate this. I'm going to use what we used before on that presentation just so you can see the differences on what it was from Word and PowerPoint, but I'm going to have this recreate now from this document. Yes, and I'm going to make sure it replaces it and not adds to Disney. Otherwise, it's going to be one of the weirdest little presentations we've probably seen. But any questions on this PowerPoint? Again, very similar to Word on this side, but as you can see as it's going through, it's putting together different portions that's going to come through for this organization.
Yep. Real quick question. Can Copilot pull your previous pictures from Disney? So assuming that you're having to resell this to someone because you've been there before, can Copilot pull your previous pictures from Disney and use them in the presentation?
Great question. So on those ones, it depends if it's inside your tenant, right? So if you have this inside of your tenant on this side, it could potentially pull those photos. You would most likely need to reference those to be utilized in this one because it's going to default to stock images. And the reason it defaults to stock images is for copyright reasons on that side. So yes, it could utilize those, but you're going to need to use either reference them and make sure it's inside your tenant to have that reference, or through the designer add those photos as a replacement on those trips to Disney, right? And again, the reason on that one is all around copyright more so than anything else on that one.
Okay, so number one, make sure that the pictures are available to be found, and then, like so many things, prompt it in such a way that it knows to pull those pictures. Basically.
Exactly. Or, I just adjust that with Designer, right? I go from a Copilot to Designer, and then I go through and have that happen on that side. But again, we saw what it created from this document in Word before, and on the CSP incentives and different things on this side. And you can see again where it's recreated this just into this format. Any kind of changes, let me just say, hey, I'm just going to add more color. If I can spell, I can actually say, hey, add more color to this slide, right? And it's going to go through on this slide. It didn't look like I wanted to do that one. That's okay. There's different ways. Obviously, you can go through and prompt on different ones. For that one, I just didn't want to behave for those ones on that prompt. But there are different ways to go through and make changes via this on prompting. I can move slides or different things on that side. Yeah, Copilot is just being a little stubborn on that one. But again, very simple ways to go through and make changes. Again, if I want to do save prompts that I've had before, this is also a way that if I've created a presentation that I can utilize this again to make a similar presentation with slightly different information. Where I think this is really great and where I don't have this as part of mine at the moment is if you have a brand guide for your marketing team and you want that to be stuck to, This is a way where we can have those presentations created from files, or make sure that different information is in there, that it follows the different branding guides on that side. So again, just this is just something that, if you save this before, you don't, redo what you've done before, if that's been effective for you.
Cool.
Yeah. Any other questions on that side? I know we're moving along pretty quick on the time, and I want to make sure we have some time to get to our Excel.
Yeah. No, nothing for now, but we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah, Excel on this one. I have to throw up my hand and say that as a Microsoft guy, I'm woefully not as great as Excel as I probably could be. So this is a tool that can be very helpful. I will say Excel is one of the newer functions on Copilot, and in my opinion, I think there's still more to be done on this one. So if you're an Excel wizard, you might find some of the things that Excel has a little bit easy, right? You're saying, hey, I already can do this with my own formulas or different things on this side. But what I do like is there's different ways on formula creation. Again, if I want to summarize this using pivot tables or different charts, I can easily do that, or just simple formatting things, right? But let's just go through here and say, hey, let's suggest a formula column that we'd be looking for, and we can see what Copilot comes up with. Again, this is just all fake data, nothing too intense. Which again, I think when you get into larger data sets, that's where I think this potentially could be more official on this one. Let me just try that one more time. Again, like I said, Excel is a little bit in the newer side, so there is a little bit more of hiccups on this one and different sides here. But as you said, once this is finished up, it can go through and add these different ones. And if I want to add this to a sheet, it can just add this to a sheet on the data analyzation that I just had from my first sheet on this side. So again, really easy ways to go through and do those different things and get those added instead of me going through and making that pivot table, making that analyzation on my side. But again, I think there's still room to improve here on the Outlook side. So on this one, there's obviously other different things we can go through and do through different prompting. As I can view here, I can help understand, create, apply, or do different things on that one. So again, I think there's a ton more to show on this one just because it is in its infancy a little bit more on this Wave 2. I think when Wave 3 comes out and there's going to be more integrations, a little bit more seamless with Power BI, I think it's going to help a lot with visualizations. Again, I just think there's a little bit more way to go on Excel, if that's to be completely honest with you on this one.
Yeah, and I think the Excel thing, you've got the suggestions, but I think about when I'm trying to figure things out, sometimes it's like you have your own intent to what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
So you're gonna prompt Copilot with what you're trying to achieve. And
absolutely.
I agree with what you're saying. I think the experience is down to the individual and what they're trying to get from it. They're going to prompt it with what they need. Show me the sales figures, analyze this, analyze that. So I agree with you, Elliot. It's a little tricky just to demo and say, look at all the things you can do.
Absolutely, but like I said, just know it's there. Like I said, it's kind of that sheet to move yourself up in the value chain and be able to work with Excel on this side. Don't have much else on your side. I do have a video on Teams. I know a lot of times how videos work on presentations. Sometimes they come through a little choppy, or maybe not getting extra. If everyone's interested in that, I absolutely can share that with you, and we can take a look at what can happen in Teams, give you an idea of that side. Scott, I leave that on your court. Like I said, I don't want otherwise I can just open to answering questions for everyone.
Oh, we can try it and see. My experience with webinars is videos always a hit and miss. We can see if you want.
Yeah, no problem. Just so we can give you a little taste, I will give this a college try, as they say, on getting this video. And in true fashion, I can't hear it. So what I'm going to make sure we do is after this presentation, I'm going to make sure that everyone has this video on this side. What I just want to point out on this one is really what we're going to see when it comes to apologies everyone on that one. Didn't start from the slide I wanted to, but I just want to show, maybe it'll let me show this on this next slide, on what we're looking for this recap, right? This is what's coming through on Teams is, when did Serena talk? When did Daniela talk? Where are my different speakers? When did they come from information? The content that's been part of those different ones. The transcripts that are based on this one. For me, I think the most intriguing feature that I talked about on this one is the follow portion. And the follow portion is, I can attend this meeting today, but I do want to make sure I get information and content from that. What that's going to do, if I hit follow, it's going to prompt the host of that meeting to record and transcribe. And then that's what's going to send me back those AI notes, that transcript and everything that I can utilize from that. And then, if I want to go back and say, hey, when did Mona speak on this topic? I can easily see that. And if I want to hear it in her voice or intonation to understand what she was presenting on, I can go back exactly to the recording and catch that piece. So again, I think it just helps with communication on not playing telephone on, hey, what happened in this meeting with Scott and Elliot? Can easily just give you that intelligent recap on what's happening there, and you be able to make that decision based on that information. So great for meetings you're attending. I think even better for meetings that you're not able to attend to make sure you're caught up on that information. But like I said, I'll make sure that video is attached to Scott afterwards so you can take a look. I also have a colleague who was able to put together a nice piece of that in a demo environment that can show a little bit more on that too, if you'd like me to send that over as well. But yeah, Scott, any final questions on this one? Again, apologies for that video not behaving. I think we maybe thought that might happen, but
I did too. I just wanted the one thing I noticed. So for all the audience today, it's available in Teams Premium, right? I saw the asterisk in the bottom. So if you're using Teams, you'll need a premium license to do that, right, Elliot? I saw that in there.
Yeah, so it comes with Copilot for M365. You're saying, hey, I actually just really want to have this Teams function. You can buy just the Teams Premium option to actually get that. Again, a nice way to ease into utilizing this full-blown M365, right? You'll have the web portion of that. You'll have the Teams portion of that one. And then you'll be able to see, hey, is this beneficial to us too? So again, just another great way to start testing Copilot and understand how it can best work for you.
Excellent. All right, I just quickly chat the Q&A. No further questions. For those that have thrown those in, I appreciate it. That really kind of improved the session today for sure. So I want to thank you everyone for the participation. I don't see any further questions. Again, the session will be recorded. Contact information will be in there as well. So if you've got further questions on what we've covered today and didn't pose your question today, we'll get you the information that you need. But Elliot, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for digging into it. Thanks for jumping into it live with all the risks associated to just jumping in. So appreciate your time, appreciate everyone's attendance today, and we'll let you get back to your day, and appreciate everyone's time today.